Good morning,
Hello,
everybody.
Prof.
Good morning.
Hello, Prof.
Good morning, senior colleagues.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Emeritus Professor Sogolo. Good morning to
Good
our
afternoon.
distinguished audience. On behalf of the Director and the Vice Chancellor of National Open University of Nigeria, I welcome you to today's webinar on the topic Cross-Border Labor Mobility and Regional Economic Integration in ECOWAS. That is to be presented by Dr. Abdul Adamu, which I'll be giving his bibliography shortly. But before then, I want to tell you a little about our center that is hosting today's webinar. On behalf of the director of the center, Professor Gloria Neto, who is unavoidably absent, I will be anchoring today's webinar. And I am Dr. David Ndokaota, a research fellow in the center. You are all welcome. Of Excellence in Market and Global Studies is a fulcrum of evidence-based research about pressing and emerging issues on migration and global challenges in Nigeria, Africa, and the globe at large. The center was established in February 2020 with a seed fund from Tertiary Education Trust Fund, ETF. The center has grown to be a hub with emphasis on field-based research that impacts policy formulation and execution for solutions to both internal and global migration. We focus on internal capacity building first and foremost, and stress Afrocentric-based method in arts, humanities, social sciences, and sciences. It is the first of its kind in Nigeria and an innovation with distinct concepts, context, perspective, and focus. As a research hub, the center is engaged in research about migration and global studies, both internal and external. And its conceptualization, contextualization, and decolonization are primarily for internal paradigm, dimension, and capacity development for field-based research and policy-oriented recommendations arising therefrom. Our migration observatory is field-based, using ethnographic, art methods, and extensive narratives that validate theories. The vision of the center is to be the bridge between humanity and the future. The mission is to provide sustainable leverage for interdisciplinary research in migration and global studies. The center's core values are integrity, inclusion, diversity, service, and participatory. Among the core mandates of the center includes to provide leverage for field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as an agent of national policy for migration and global studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and maintain peer-reviewed academic journals and monogram series, to collaborate with stakeholders in the field of migration, global studies, and policymakers, to organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures in migration and global studies issues. The center has since inception published 4 volumes of her journal, International Journal of Migration and Global Studies. The 5th volume, number 1, April 2025, is currently undergoing copy editing and will soon be released. To know more about the center, I invite you to visit our social media handles, which will be displayed in the chat box. They are all visible in chat box. All our social media handles, we are visible on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where our activities are being publicized. So I invite you to visit our social media handles to be updated on the activities that we are doing. Thank you very much. And in furtherance to our mandate, today we'll be looking at the topic cross-border labor mobility and regional economic integration in ECOWAS, which will be presented by Dr. Abdul Adamu. Dr. Abdul Adamu, our presenter for today, was born on November 13th, 1980 in Akpan, Kogi State, Nigeria. His educational background reflects a commitment to academic excellence. He obtained his national diploma in mathematics and statistics from Federal Polytechnic Nasarawa in 2000 with a distinction. Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Ahmad Ben University Zaria in 2005 with a first class. This was followed by a Master of Science degree in Management from Bayo University Kano in 2011 with a distinction, and finally a doctorate degree, Doctor of Philosophy in Business Administration in 2016 from National State University, Kefi. He joined National State University in 2007 as a grade assistant, from where he has risen in the ranks, and currently he is a reader in finance and capital markets. Along his teaching responsibilities, he has held administrative roles such as head of Department of Business Administration, post-graduate representative, coordinator of part-time degree and MBA programs, and most recently, Deputy Director at the Entrepreneurship Development Center. His research interests are diverse, covering finance, capital markets, and entrepreneurship. He has published extensively in reputable academic journals. Additionally, he is an active member of several professional bodies, including NITN, CIS, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, with a great pleasure, I wish to invite to the stage our presenter for today, Dr. Abdul Adamu, for his wonderful presentation on the theme cross-border labor mobility and regional economic integration in ECOWAS. Thank you very much. He will have 45 minutes to do his presentation, after which we'll go to the Q&A section. Thank you very much. Dr. Abdul, you may please share your screen and put in presentation mode as you take the stage. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I am sharing my screen, and I believe we can see my screen clearly. So I hope I'm sharing my screen.
Yes, please. Yes.
We can see the screen now.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
yes,
my brother Victor said, my name is Abdul Adamu. I am a lecturer at the Department of Business Administration, Nasarawa State University, Kefi, and I will be making presentation on cross-border labor mobility and regional economic integration in ECOWAS. Like we know, ECOWAS stands for the Economic Community of West African States. It was established in 1975, and as of today, they have 15 member countries with a population of over or almost 400 million people. Part of the pillar of ECOWAS integration is the issue of free movement of people between the member country. So it is one of their fundamental elements in the regional integration. This is aside the issue of trade and the flow of capital, foreign direct investment, inflow and outflow. The 15 countries that make up ECOWAS are we have Benin Republic, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Libya, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. Even though recently the ECOWAS are having issue with some country that there are military incursion into the politics, like Niger, Mali, and the other one. So the significance of this integration is to allow movement, cross-border movement between the country. And we know the countries, there are a lot of people living within this region, and most of the people living within this region share similar characteristics. So the objective of this presentation is just to examine the current state of labor mobility or this migration within the ECOWAS countries, and we are going to also look at the economic impact, both the positive and the negative impact. That is the positive impact and the challenges that comes with this labor mobility across ECOWAS border. And we are going to also look at the opportunities within this. And arising from this discussion, we'll try to see some of the conclusion that we'll get from it, some recommendation that we'll give. Now, if you look at generally the population of this country, you can see clearly, like I stated earlier, as at data from ECOWAS Commission population statistic in 2018, we can see clearly that the total population is over 376 million. That is as at 2018. And out of these 378 million, over 378 million, Nigeria has the highest population of over 198 million. Then we have countries like the Côte d'Ivoire, we have countries like Burkina Faso, we have countries like Niger with a significant number in terms of population. So this region is a very populated region with a population clocking almost 500 million people. Then, like we said, part of the essence of creating ECOWAS is free movement of people. And to facilitate this free movement of people, which brings about movement of labor from one part of the region to the other, we have abolition of visa. That is, an indigene of Nigeria who is going to Ghana, for instance, should not require visa to enter Ghana. So they all have right of residence and establishment, suppression of barriers and police checkpoint, creation of ECOWAS travel certificates, circulation of ECOWAS passport, and harmonization of documents, regulation, and formalities. So this migration policy has evolution. This was founded in 1975, where we have the regional integration as a pathway to economic development was established. Then in 1979, the protocol for this free movement was stated, and the implementation should follow three phases. We have the right of entry without visa, which was 90 days. We have the right of residence, then we have the right of establishment. The right of residence is a person from a member country has a right to reside in the other country. The right of establishment is stating that person from Nigeria will have a right to establish economic activities in Ghana, Burkina Faso, or Cote d'Ivoire, as the case may be. So the implementation timeline for this protocol are that in 1980, phase 1 should be implemented. And the phase 1, like we mentioned earlier, is the right of entry without visa. That is visa-free entry. In 1986, supplementary protocol on right of residence was adopted. In 1990, supplementary protocol on right of establishment also was adopted. Then in 2008, the ECOWAS Common Approach on Migration was approved. Let us look at the current implementation status. The first implementation of free movement, all the countries have complied and they have eliminated visa requirement. On the right of residence, this to some statistic, on the right of residence to some statistic, this is also fully implemented, but with some caveat, which means that every member or citizens of one country of ECOWAS that want to live in the other country must obtain resident permit or resident card or permit. So for implementation level, this is approximately 65% compliance rate. For right of establishment, this is under implementation. It has the lowest compliance of about 40% across the region. So ECOWAS biometric ID was adopted in 2014, and it has been implemented in several countries as early as this 2025. Now let us look at the current state of the cross-border mobility across the ECOWAS region within the country, whether immigration or immigration. Will give some of the key statistics to buttress some of these points. Hello, excuse me. Now, let us in terms of scale and pattern, the migration volume, intra-regional migration volume, that is migration within the region, we have over 7.5 million migrants. 84% of all African migrants in West Africa stay within the region. Then the primary destination for these migrants, mostly the Cote d'Ivoire has the highest percentage, followed by Ghana, and followed by Nigeria, then Ghana. What it means is that most of the people that migrate either go to Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, or Ghana, because Cote d'Ivoire has the highest percentage. And the primary country that they come from is basically countries like Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and Togo. In terms of distribution, in terms of gender, whether the migrants are male or female, 58% of these migrants represent men, while 42% represent two. This shows an increasing trend in women migration also within the region. Then, if we look at the classification by proportion of immigrants from ECOWAS states, the country that has the highest inflow, that is the country that has the highest number of immigrants, labor movement moving into their region, is Cote d'Ivoire, like I mentioned earlier. This statistic is as at 2018, then followed by Niger, then Nigeria and Liberia. The country that received an average proportion of migrants from ECOWAS among all its movements, they are Mali, Burkina Faso, Benin, Senegal, Guinea, and Ghana. And the country with low proportion of immigrants from ECOWAS are Sierra Leone, Togo, Guinea-Bissau, Cabo Verde, and the Gambia. So if we look at the chart is showing us clearly those proportions. We can see that if you look at the graph, you can see Cote d'Ivoire has the highest proportion, then followed by Nigeria, then Mali. In terms of the migration corridor, that is where the movement emanated from and where they moved from. Most of the corridor is between Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire, where over 1.3 million people move from Burkina Faso to Cote d'Ivoire, and most of them work in the informal sector and the agriculture. Also, we have over 860,000 migrants from Niger to Nigeria who are also in the informal sector and agriculture. We also have a migration corridor between Mali and Senegal. This accounts for over 350,000 migrants who are mostly in the service sector and trade. And there is also a migration corridor between Togo and Ghana with over 320,000 migrants. And these are in different sectors of the economy of Ghana. So based on weight, we can see in terms of immigrant, that is the people going from their country to other country, Nigeria lead by far with over 54%, then followed by Niger, then Cote d'Ivoire, and the other one. Then if we look at the classification of ECOWAS country by quantity of immigrants received, that is inflow of immigrants. With inflow of immigrants, 45% of the immigrants in Nigeria reported they come from ECOWAS region. That is nearly half of all immigrants in 2018. The country that received average number of incoming immigrants are Niger with 9.73%, Cote d'Ivoire with 8.4%, Liberia with 8.09%, Mali with 6.22%, and Guinea with 2.77%. And the country with the lowest number of immigrants are Togo, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, Cabo Verde, and the Gambia with almost 0.01%. Then this is the graph showing that trend. You can see Nigeria lead by far with 45.03%. Then Gambia has the lowest. Then the migration tends to be either seasonal or permanent. Seasonal is maybe when it is the farming season. Then permanent tends to go to the service sector or the construction sector. So for this migration within the region, the seasonal agricultural cycle, 45% of all migration within the ECOWAS region labor movement follow this trend. So as the agricultural season is coming up, we see a lot of movement within the region to go to those sectors. Then the construction sector accounts for 22% and of temporary labor migration. We have seen trends where the people that work in the construction sector come from countries like Togo, Niger, Ghana to do some construction work in Nigeria. After which, some of them stay behind or they go back. Then we have permanent settlement. This is an increasing permanent settlement. This is an increasing trend. Some of them that come either for agricultural season or for the construction season tend to stay behind and settle permanently, with 38% staying more than 5 years, up to 25% in 2010. One thing that had impact with the labor migration across West Africa is the issue of COVID-19 impact. During the COVID-19, there were border closure, and this reduced mobility by about 68%, especially during the peak period. Then there were also estimated return migration, people trying to return to their home country in the heat of the COVID-19. Also, after COVID-19, there was a recovery pattern, return of 85% of pre-pandemic mobility level by 2022. People started returning back to their base after the pandemic. And with digital adaptation, there is increased use of formal remittance channel with about 31% increase. Now, let us look at the economic impact analysis. What is the economic impact of labor migration within the ECOWAS region? Now, one key impact it has is the issue of GDP contribution. The movement provide a direct contribution to the destination country, where labor move from Niger to Nigeria and they are involved in agriculture. They increase productivity in this region. So migrant labor contribute approximately 12 to 18% of GDP in Cote d'Ivoire, 8 to 12% in Nigeria, and 7 to 10% in Ghana. This is a no small feat, and the sector with the highest migrant concentration are agriculture, which is 42%, informal trade, 26%, construction, domestic service, and other services. So in that order, this sector, the contribution of labor migrant to this sector is a great contribution to the GDP of the particular country where they are. Then also in terms of remittance flow, that is, the money they earn in the country where they are, they tend to send it back to their home country. So intra-ECOWAS remittance, that is remittance within the ECOWAS region, money earned in Nigeria sending back to Togo, sent back to Ghana, sent back to Burkina Faso. It is estimated as over $4.2 billion annually. This is according to 2023 data. And the major remittance corridor are, like we said earlier, we said the movement corridor is between Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire. So the Burkina Faso people, whatever they earn, they remit it back to their country. They remitted over 780 million US dollar as of 2023 between Nigeria and Niger. Remittance from Nigeria to Niger is over $500 million. From Ghana to Togo, 340 million US dollar. So remittance as a percentage of GDP, this represents over 10% of the GDP in Gambia. That is to say, the remittance that comes to Gambia is over 10% of the total production that was made in Gambia, Cabo Verde, and Liberia. So then the transfer method mostly is 58% is through formal channel, that is following through the normal banking route where they are recorded. 42% is through informal sector. So, but with increasing formalization, people tend to transfer money within the country, So now also another impact is in terms of labor market effect for skills that are not present in this country. The labor mobility tends to provide complementary skill to those of them. You can see some of the jobs that the people from Togo do when in Nigeria. If you are looking for people that do perfect POP, some of this handwork, they mostly come from the neighboring country. So for the skill that we don't have in abundance or that are not in abundance in other countries, this movement provide complementary skill. 67% of migrants work in sector with local labor shortage. In terms of wage effect, there are limited evidence of wage depression, average 3 to 5% in affected sector. In terms of entrepreneurship, they are 25% more likely to start business than local in urban. Look at around all our community. All those Meishai you see, those selling Indomie and bread, those having corner shop. They speak Hausa, but most of them are from the neighboring country, Niger, Mali, and some of these countries. So they tend to, when they come around, they tend to be involved in entrepreneurship than the local. Then there is urban versus rural distribution. 62% urban, 38% rural. That is, most of the people that come live in urban area. You understand? Why others live in the rural area. Then another impact is in terms of skill transfer and human capital development. A lot of them, when they come with their skill. Our local people tends to align with them and learn some of these skills. You see a lot of people in Nigeria that have learned how to do some of the things in building from Togolese guys that comes to do this thing. The same way Nigerians in other countries, the skills they go there with, they tend to teach other people. So in educational profile, 65% primary education or less, 25% secondary, 10%. Then skill acquisition, 72% of migrants, they report that they have learned new skill during the migration. And return migration benefit, returnee earn 15 to 20% higher wages than non-migrant. And brain circulation versus brain drain, emerging pattern of circular migration among highly skilled. Now, let us look at the challenges and the barriers. So the challenges with labor mobility within this region, one of the issues is the implementation gap. Like we stated earlier, the 3 protocols, some are fully implemented, while others are still in various stages of implementation. The protocol enforcement is inconsistent at border crossing. Some of the things that the protocol tend to discourage are still happening within some border. Then documentation requirement, despite the fact that they say the visa is free, some of the countries still impose additional requirement. It may not be the visa, but at the point of entry, they still provide some requirement which these migrants are supposed to meet. Then the right of resident, there is, like I stated earlier, you need to have a resident permit or obtain a resident card or a resident permit. So to obtain some of these things, there are still complex administrative procedure, and this limit full establishment. In terms of the right of establishment, there are protectionist policy. Sometimes some states or some countries tend to come up with policy to try to protect their own indigenous at the expense of those that are moving. So this restricts business ownership in some of the states, like some 9-member states. Then another challenge is the issue of documentation and identification issue. In terms of identity verification, only 68% of the ECOWAS citizens has a valid national ID card. Then for travel certificate, there is a low adoption rate, 23% of cross-border travelers. For biometric ID implementation, it has been delayed in 8 member states due to technical and financial constraints. For civil registration gap, 31% of births unregistered across the region. But this is also, some of these things are improving recently. Then another challenge is the issue of recognizing qualification. You can see that qualification from Nigeria sometimes tends to be questioned in some of the West African countries, and some from West African countries tends to be questioned. So the no region-wide framework to recognize qualification among these countries. Then professional licensing. If somebody that did accounting from Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, is in Nigeria, it is required that he has to do professional certification of Nigeria. So these are restricted in some professions like healthcare, legal, and engineering. And this labor move, those that move, maybe a medical doctor from Cote d'Ivoire in Nigeria will require to have a professional certification in Nigeria before he can practice in Nigeria. So, and if you look at it, this is qualified in his country. This also can be a challenge. Then there is skill assessment. There is no standardized way to assess skill that move across this boundary, and there is limited agreement between educational system on what to consider as educational equivalent. So another challenge is the issue of social integration and xenophobia. We have seen what happened in South Africa, where there are community tension between the local and the immigrant. So in Nigeria, it is similar. There is tendency, people tend to not allow the immigrant, the labor immigrant, to integrate. Well, there are documented cases of community tension in 62 of high migration destination area in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana. Then you see the tendency where a migrant in Ghana, the Ghanaian would say is a Nigerian. So this stereotyping is a problem. There is resource competition. The migrant that move tends to compete in terms of housing and public service, water supply, road. It put pressure on it. Then there is political exploitation, like anti-migrant sentiment used in electoral politics in 5 ECOWAS countries. There is media portrayal, like 70% of migration news coverage focuses on negative aspects. Some of the contributions they are doing, which are positive impact, will be discarded, and they focus on some of the negative aspects. In Nigeria, for instance, you see security challenges, and some of the narrative is that most of those people are coming from Mali, Niger, and Chad. That is, they are the ones that are involved in kidnapping and other things. But there are people from those parts that are also contributing positively here. So this is the issue of social integration and xenophobia. There is also security concern, like I mentioned now. The border is porous in nature, and this creates security challenges. So this provides an avenue for terrorists to move freely. That is why we see some of the challenge in Zamfara, Sokoto, Borno, because of the porosity of our border. Also, the route, they provide route for trafficking in person, you understand, trying to hide under the migration. Also, data sharing, limited cooperation between the military and intelligence agency in some of these countries. They don't share data to be able to nip this security concern in the bud. So I have tried to show side by side the negative and the positive impact. In terms of positive, labor allocation, both in remittances and household income, regional productivity and growth, skill and knowledge transfer, strengthening ECOWAS unity. In terms of negative, there is strain on social services. So some of the provision, water for 1 million people, when we have immigrants of 10,000, it put a strain on that. Then there is competition for job. As other people come, the limited job may not be sufficient. Xenophobia, as I mentioned, brain drain, where people that are experts in one country tend to move to countries that they will make more money. Then there are policy inconsistency and poor enforcement. Despite all this, there are still opportunity in labor migration across this region. Economic benefit of enhanced mobility, labor market complementarity, like we mentioned earlier, some of the skills that are not available in some country, this can complement it. Entrepreneurial dynamism, migrants start 35% of new small businesses in urban area. I've mentioned some of the small shop and some of the things we see around, they are established by migrants. And the migrant spending also supports our local economy, and they pay tax. Some that are formalized, they pay tax, and this increase the tax revenue in the region nationwide with almost 817 million US dollar. We have success stories of labor migration within the region, like the Ghana-Togo border community, the simplified crossing procedure, and that increased formal trade by 43%. Nigeria ECOWAS Skill Development Center provide training aligned with regional labor need. Senegal Migrant Resource Center, it has reintegrated over 15,000 returnees successfully since 2018. Cote d'Ivoire Agricultural Cooperative, it has integrated seasonal worker that comes from Burkina Faso with legal protection. So despite all this, there are ways that this solution, we can provide solution using digital means by providing digital identity initiative using blockchain verification system, by having a mobile migration service, that is the application processing and information dissemination can be done on mobile. Then labor market matching platform that is connecting skill with opportunity across border using a digital platform, and also having a remittance technology to reduce transfer cost, which is over 7.3% of the total amount spent for now. So for future and recommendation, we said that there should be harmonization of the implementation. There should be standard documentation requirement across all border. The data collection should be strengthened through a coordinated system. Then the social protection, they should develop a portable benefit system for migrant workers, and we'll find a way to formalize the informal sector by creating a pathway to regularize undocumented workers. And we should develop qualification framework whereby somebody with a medical, that is a medical practitioner in Cabo Verde can practice the same thing when he comes to Nigeria, and in Nigeria can practice easily when he gets to Nigeria. So for institutional mechanism, the ECOWAS Commission oversight should be strengthened for regular compliance, monitoring, and reporting. Then there should be dedicated migration management offices in each of the 15 member states. Then there should be engagement of the local authority in major destination city, and there should be partnership with NGO for efficient service delivery and advocacy. So in conclusion, cross-border labor mobility remain a cornerstone of ECOWAS economic integration with significant untapped potential, like all the economic impact and the things we have mentioned in the course of this presentation. So there are implementation challenges which can be addressed through coordinated policy approaches, including some that we have mentioned, and there are evidence that have shown that the migration within the ECOWAS community has impact, and this impact sometimes outweigh some of the negative narrative that we hear. So when they are well managed, the impact can be well harnessed. We can use digital solution and institutional framework to offer pathway to enhance regional integration. So the success will require political commitment to the founding principle of ECOWAS. So on this note, I want to say thank you, and this is the end of my presentation. So back to you, Dr. Victor. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're getting reactions. Okay, so Dr. Add that to them, please. Please, you can exit screen sharing mode. Okay, Professor Akim, ask your
Yes.
question.
Okay. Good
I
afternoon.
think I've stopped it. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to congratulate Dr. Abdul Adamu for having the audacity to venture into this significant research area. So, labor studies is part of my areas of research interest, and I feel I have some observations and also recommendations for improvements. My first observation is from the ontology of his presentation. By ontology, I mean the subject matter he has addressed, starting from the topic of his presentation. So, in that topic, I think first, labor is not homogeneous. So I want to advise the researcher, Dr. Abdul Adamu, to, if possible, specify the aspect of labor, and this came out in his presentation. So when he did the configuration of labor migrants, so we could see from his data that agricultural labor and those in informal trade were the highest proportions. So, and that means you may want to consider informal workers because of the different dimensions of labor. So, and his own study, majority of the data tend to capture more extensively those in agriculture and informal trade. So the others are minorities. So that's the first observation. And if he agrees that instead of proceeding with labor migration, he can find a way to limit the topic to a focus on informal workers, and now possibly they are contributing to economic integration, or how they are affected by economic integration. That's the observation one from the ontology of the study. The second observation is the use of the word region and ECOWAS together in the topic. ECOWAS is a region, and for that reason, another region should not appear in the topic. So once ECOWAS is in the topic, because ECOWAS is already a region in itself, there's no need for using the word regional again. So the topic could have read cross-border labor migration and economic integration in ECOWAS, because ECOWAS is a region. So the word regional before economy is not necessary. That's the second observation. So the third observation is the data. When he mentioned the statistics of, when he mentioned the population of ECOWAS, I noticed he used 2018 data. And I think a more recent data would be more appropriate. I want to advise the researcher to look for a more recent data, because reality of migration is changing every day. And 2018 is pre-COVID. And we are currently in a post-COVID reality. We are currently in a post-COVID reality, and those figures may have changed as a result of migration trend in the post-COVID area. Yes. But the data he has presented tend to focus more on situation before the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's the third observation. So the fourth observation is about, I did not hear him talk about the method of data collection. And closely related to this is the fact that the citations in his presentations are quite, I didn't see much of citations, because it's expected that research of this nature is supposed to demonstrate engagement with the literature. And this is taking us to the epistemology, the state of knowledge and the gaps that our researcher is filling. So I want to advise Dr. Abdul Adamu to clearly point out the gaps that he has discovered in the literature upon which he's making intervention at the moment. So we need to know method of data collection, and we need to know the gap that is actually filling. And finally, I myself, I was in Abidjan in the 1990s, and I was arrested by the police because I did not have identity card. So I traveled with laissez-passer at that time, and laissez-passer is one of the travel documents which the presenter mentioned. Yes, apart from this assumption of freedom, there are restrictions. Right from the border, Nigerians go through a lot when they are crossing the border. And also, he presented Nigeria as a major destination country. I did not hear him also present Nigeria as a source of migration, as origin, because a lot of Nigerians are in Cotonou, a lot of Nigerians are in Cote d'Ivoire. In fact, there's a king in Cote d'Ivoire that is called Oba Yoruba. The Yoruba community in Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, is quite huge to the extent that they have a king. I'm from Ejigbo local government, and majority of our people, they travel to Abidjan almost every day, up to 5-6 luxurious buses leave Ejigbo local government on a daily basis. And people that want to travel to Abidjan, they come from different parts of Nigeria. They travel through my local government. So I want the researcher to
your point is taking.
Okay.
Yes.
So
your point is taking.
Yes. So yes.
In
conclusion, this is an important study, and I think the researchers should clearly point out the gaps that is filling. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kim, for your comments. Please, yes. The presenter, you will react to the questions and comments after I've taken the whole questions and comments. So you just take notes. After we have taken the whole questions and comments, then you will react. I wish to pass the microphone to Emeritus Professor Godin for his comments and questions, please. Thank you, Emeritus Professor.
Yeah,
you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you. Where is the director? I did not see her.
Sorry, Good afternoon, sir.
Okay.
Only that I'm not on ground. I'm answering you from a far-off country.
Okay.
So there was a bit of I was in a conference, and I just said, let me see looking. So I just logged in a few minutes ago. I'm not in Nigeria. Thank you,
that's
sir.
Great. That's
Thank you for always being there for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I was waiting that at the end I will now talk.
Very much.
Thank you, sir.
No, you bring Kuli.
Yes, okay, your representative is doing very, very well.
Yes, I trust him.
Yes, yeah.
I trust him. That's why I gave him the assignment.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Save Johnny back. Yeah. Now, I first of all, I want to congratulate Dr. Adamu for the very clear presentation. Because one of the things I noticed, I followed everything from beginning to the end, and there were no jargon, and it was clear about every point he was trying to make. And I really admire such presentations.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there were some points I wanted to raise, but Professor Kinwale had covered some of them. I wanted to raise some about, for instance, the documents you require in order to go through the border, and he has he has commented on that, so I don't need to go into that. But I want to about your reference to residence permits among the ECOWAS countries. You gave the impression privilege to ECOWAS countries based on their relationship. Countries, because a British person coming into Nigeria to work will apply for a residence permit. And if it's given, then he could use that to work. In fact, almost every migrant from outside coming to Nigeria who wants to work will need that. So I don't know what is special about that when you spoke on it about ECOWAS and residence permit. That is just my only question. The rest have been covered by Professor Akinwale. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emeritus Professor Godwin, for your contribution. I can see our former Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Ubadamu. Please, Prof, sir, you permit us, you will have the microphone after Dr. Ali Abubakar, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Prof. So, Dr. Ali Abubakar, please, you may proceed with your comments and questions. Thank you. Okay, please, it's like it's no more on the line. My former visitor, please, you may have the floor, sir. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you very much. This is a very interesting discussion. And as usual, those who know me and have noted my participation in all this, I tend to look, oh, by the way, I would like to say hello to the grand old man, Professor Sogolo. So my observation is that I am looking at things from social and cultural anthropology. All this data stream about all these figures and that figures and that figures, to be honestly frank, at the end of the day, say nothing to us about the real nature of migration. Some of these figures are not even real. Even he himself, the presenter, contradicted himself. For instance, he was in one place about entrepreneurship. He said 25% of locally based entrepreneurship was by migrant. And then in another slide, he now said 35%. So there is a little bit of inconsistency in the data. I don't think it is his fault. His fault is probably the source of the data that he gets. And I know that a lot of agencies don't trust any MBS statistics. When I worked for the USAID, whenever we use figures that we collected in the field, USAID will say no, they will not accept that particular figure because they don't really trust the figures that are given by all these agencies flying about. So I would have loved, for instance, for him, in all this issue about migrants sending money and so on, let him talk to a person or a group of people, an FGD with a group of people who will now inform us about the actual money they send home and what that money is done for, giving us a cumulative statistics of the fact that they send millions and millions of dollars doesn't really give us a real sense of importance of that remittance into a local community. For instance, Hakim Ibrahim, Hakim Abekunle Tijani is a migrant in America. And I'm sure Hakim sends about minimum of maybe $20,000 every month back home. Where does that $20,000 go into? Is it lost in the statistics of remittance? Oh, I would like to see a concrete project that Hakim did as a result of being a diasporal remitter so that we know that his presence outside the country is beneficial to those in the country. That's one aspect that I think we need to look at. And then we're talking about, okay, if entrepreneurship by migrants is 25%, as he said in one of his files, that means that 75% of local entrepreneurship is done by the locals. So what is the significance of the immigrants? I mean, if here in Kano, those people who are selling Indomie, Shai, Reke, and all the other small scale industries are 75% of the population, compared to 25% of immigrants, then the immigrants are not contributing a lot, really, are they? And then finally, xenophobia. People tend to be protective of their communities, okay, wherever they are. Whenever somebody comes in new, they will always come in with the new ideas, and those new ideas may likely clash with those that they found in there. The Chinese triads, for instance, in America, have formed part of the criminal gang. So it is not just simply in Africa that we have criminal gangs and so on coming in. But the problem with immigrants, wherever they are, whether it is outside or coming inside, is lack of ability to integrate with the local community, because they have different shared values, and that is why they are not really accepted. In Kano, we have a lot of Arab migrants, a lot of them, and they have been in Kano for hundreds of years. But they still remain separate because they refuse to integrate with the local community. They speak the local language, probably eat local food, but they do that in order to gain access to resources at the local community. But they have a higher advantage in the sense that, first of all, they have a lot of money, and secondly, they are white. And wherever black people are, a white person comes in, he's seen as a superior person, even if he's not a white person as such. But so long as he's different, he's seen as a superior person. And therefore, they were given all sorts of advantages that other people will not have gotten. So xenophobia is not just simply a question of coming somebody from outside. It's a question of losing your own personal identity. You also talk about porous borders and Boko Haram and things like that. But the focus is always on Boko Haram up north. What about IPOB in down south and porous borders from Cameroon and so on and so forth? But Boko Haram phenomenon was not from outside the country. It was initiated in 2002 here locally by the political class. And that's how it spiraled out of control. Since 2002 up to now, for 23 years, we have been facing this problem. But IPOB is also a local problem that has probably foreign elements from other places. I mean, the leader of IPOB, for instance, is in Finland or somewhere like that. So you could see somebody who is diasporic outside the country leading into disturbances in the country. So I think that is something that also needs to be clarified. So Boko Haram is really a personal kind of thing. It's inward homegrown. So finally, I would have loved, like I said, for him to talk to immigrants, to embed a video in his presentation in which an immigrant from Ghana, from Togo, from Burkina, from Niger, from wherever it is, explains his experiences. Right now, I'm conducting a research on irregular migration to Libya by the Hausa youth. We have a lot of Hausa youth who find one way or the other of getting to Libya. And ironically enough, these guys post videos of themselves, of the problem that they face in Libya, as well as in Algeria, Tunisia, and Egypt. And they provide a rich source of data about their experiences. I would have loved that in any discussion about migration, let's have a real live one. Let's have somebody who shares with us his migratory experiences, the kind of problem they face about integration, about economy, about security, about identity, and so on. That will make it a little bit more lively. That will make it a little bit living. But a lot of all the data given looks impressive. I'm really impressed with the way it was presented. But the problem is, at the end of the day, the question is, so what? I mean, really, really. So what do we do with all this beautiful data? I mean, so what? What do they tell us? It just tells us things that are locked up in books that he has pulled them out. But in terms of reality, in terms of existence, so what? That's the question I want him to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my former Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Ubadamu, for such wonderful contributions. So we'll take the question from Dr. Ali Abubakar, then we'll now take comments from Professor Hakim Tijani. But for now, let's take questions or comments from Dr. Ali Abubakar. We'll call him later on. Dr. Ali, you can unmute yourself, please, and then ask your questions or make your comment.
Good afternoon, all. I want to recommend the presenter. He really opened our horizon to what border is and how people move around the border. But I want him to equally reintegrate the entrepreneurship, the informal entrepreneur, because when you have a data of a 25% entrepreneurial figure, the informal sector has chunk of those businesses going out and without remitting anything as tax to the government. When you go to places like the GBR axis, There are places that bandits have not ravaged those places. And you see that in the middle of the night, they allow people with cows coming in with cows. And at the end of the day, you see the security agencies there taking 500 naira on each cow to cross those cows and bring them to Nigeria to sell. Sometimes you see our own people also paying some stipend, which does not really count on the government revenue. I think the presenter should also include this one. These ones are, I think it will be a primary data as the vice chancellor earlier said, that there should be a practical interview with the real people in that entrepreneurial sector. So I think the informal sector should also be captured so that we will not have a leakage of revenue. In the movie axis also, you see grains going out to Cameroon, and also no tax, no any remitter to Nigeria government. So there is also a leakage of revenue in that axis. So I think if the presenter will also give a live interview of this and also present to the policymakers so that they will uncover and unravel these leakages, I think it will add up to our revenue to the country. I think these are my own observation that I want the presenter to still capture. That is the informal sector.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Abubakar, for your observations. Please, you may have the floor now, Professor Tijani Hakim. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon at your end. I would like to apologize for joining late. And I thank whoever sent that update on the CMGS that actually woke me up. But thank you. I have listened to the comments, and what I immediately did was to read the PowerPoint. So I'll be speaking based on my limited knowledge of the subject, as well as what I've read on the PowerPoint. First and foremost, while I appreciate all the speakers before me, I want to believe this is not a doctoral thesis defense. Even in a doctoral thesis defense, there is always what we call specificity, and the specificity does not mean we have to be, we are not mandated to cover all that has been said. Having said that, on the 28th of this month, ECOWAS will be 50, and you are all encouraged to join us. In fact, the presenter is being drafted now to add knowledge to that global community, such as the one we're having right now, to share knowledge with us. That is on the 28th at 2 p.m. Nigeria time. The other thing I want to comment on is about these remittances, and thanks to my Egbon and the gentleman that gave me that opportunity to serve at NOUN before returning to Morgan, and of course the one that also asked me to come back. I'll thank both of them. That is the former VC and the current VC. In the case of the former VC, he mentioned remittances and invoked my name. And I want to say that there are so many of us, even those of us in Nigeria. The other aspect of remittances we have not looked into, if that is within the purview of this paper, is the fact that there are people within Nigeria that are remitting back to the so-called developed economy. We have various apps that people use to even remit dollars, interestingly. The volume of, and that is a totally different ball game. It's an opportunity to fill the gap. There will always be that lacuna in our research. There will always be that opportunity to fill the gap. And I think with all these comments, the presenter will take advantage and do more research, more papers. You cannot put everything in one paper. Whether you are talking about data analytics, or you're talking about remittances, or you're talking about other aspects of migration, you can even write a book from the comments. Listening to them now, you have chapters already written. And I guess you are a doctoral, you have your PhD already, so you are not a doctoral student. And anyone that is thinking about a topic for his or her doctoral, when you are listening to this kind of conversation, you come up with a topic, you come up with a focus, and that is very, very central. But let me also add to the widening aspect of cross-border mobility or migratory tendencies. There's an aspect that for me, if I were to look into that cross-border, I will focus on what we call cross-border education policy. Not many of us, and I stand to be corrected, know about the NUC cross-border education policy that guides transnational cooperation partnerships between our universities, polytechnics, colleges of education in Nigeria, and other institutions. That alone is an area that is still virgin. So when you talk about partnership, collaboration, signing MOU, we are yet to interrogate that. And I think it's an area that you may want to look into, because I don't think I will research, about it. But I have information and I have things that I can share with you. Again, thank you for sharing knowledge. I have learned from those who spoke before me. I have learned for this PowerPoint that, was shared on CMGS, and we continue to learn. God bless you. Thank you.
Very much, Prof. Hakim, for your contribution. Before you respond, Dr. Damu, we have some questions on the chat.
Sorry, please. The moderator, Tijani is my last name, is my surname.
Okay, Prof.
Noted, Prof. Thank you. Hakim is my first name. Ibikunle middle name. Last name or surname is Tijani.
Okay, noted, Prof. So, our able presenter will have some questions on the chat, which I want to read out for you before you can now respond. Or thank you very much. We have a question from Oginta Uchechukwu Chigozie. The question is, are there academic hindrances to labor migration in ECOWAS? That's the first question. With what JAM and NUC is doing in Nigeria, how can this hinder or improve labor mobility? These are two questions asked by...
I can't hear you. Please.
Okay, I said we have two questions. We have two questions on the chat from Chigozie. Okay, the first question is, are there academic hindrances? Are there academic hindrances to labor migration in ECOWAS? That's the first question. Then the second question, yes. With what JAM and NUC are currently doing in Nigeria, how can this hinder or improve labor mobility? These two questions are from Chigozie. Then we have another question from Hassan. Two questions actually from Hassan. The first question is, how is regional migration and economic integration affected by exit of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso from the ECOWAS region? Then the second question, is it economically safe to engage business transaction with these countries, making reference to these countries that aforementioned that have exited the ECOWAS agreement? So you may wish to respond to all the questions and comments briefly. Thank you very much.
Let me thank you for this opportunity. And as an academic, a young one as at that, it is an opportunity for us to share knowledge, especially when
moderator. Sorry, moderator. 2 hands were up, mine and Professor Sogolo's. Can we address those two, please?
Adamusa, you can speak, after which Emeritus Professor Sogolo will speak. Then the presenter will address everything at the end. So I think the moderator did not see the hands.
No. I want to speak first. I want to speak first before Professor Adamo, because I want him to address the point I want to make. I'm glad that he's still in-house.
Okay,
because the point I want to make relates to a point that he had made earlier. And I'm trying to make a point so that he can clarify it.
Okay, sir. No problem, sir.
I would like to speak so he can take it up.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Yes. I hope he accepts that.
Who? The presenter or myself?
You,
sir.
Yourself.
You wanted to talk to me about a point that I raised earlier, right?
Yes.
Of course, go ahead. No wahala.
Thank you.
Kosi wahala.
You know, first of all, this point about philosophy, you must concede that you are a philosopher. There's no point running away from it. That's a fact. Okay? So let's leave that issue. But I know you are. Now the point I want to raise is about an issue that you raised about a live interview, which would have, given life to the presentation. Quite all right. I agree that a live interview is important if you're talking about authenticity of your data or figures and so forth. But if you talk to scientists, they will tell you that when you're doing a research of this type, what you normally do is to conduct, an interview and extend it to as many people as you can, but always recognize the percentage of the entire data. So it makes it totally an issue of data when you are coming to your conclusion, which a live interview does not. A live interview can authenticate and say, yes, we have 1 or 2 migrants who have spoken, and this is their position. It is good for a presentation. But if you are now drawing up a conclusion scientifically speaking, that does not count as much as the number you covered, the percentage you covered before you draw your conclusion. That is the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
This sounds okay to me, but like I said, he has figures 35%, 25%, and so on. And I'm just simply raising issues about the veracity and fidelity of those figures. And I needed to know that all those figures don't really impress me. What would impress me is an FGD of migrants involved in the local entrepreneurship and how they contribute. In Kano, at one stage, the best bread is made by Ghanaians. And the Ghanaians were cleaner and so on, and everybody loved what they were doing. So I perfectly understand, and I hope he will also understand, the presenter. And at the same time, while we are talking on this particular point, I just want to pick up what Professor Hakim said concerning, I think he gave him a lot of leeway that this is not a doctoral presentation and so on. With all due respect, whatever it is, a doctoral presentation or it's a paper for a convention or an online presentation, data is very critical, because that is what will convey the credibility and the reality of your field experiences. And therefore, even if, to me, picking up just one case of immigrant talking about his own experiences, it gives the data far much more impact than NBS statistics or some other World Bank statistics that don't really say anything. That may not even be true. But talking to a person who is live from Togo, from Burkina, from Ghana, from Senegal, from Dakar, from wherever it is, talking about his experiences as a migrant, provides the data much more living focus rather than just those statistics. That's what I said. So my argument is that whenever we're dealing with migration and people moving up and down, let us share their experiences. Let us not just simply sit in the comfort of our offices and our air conditions and so on and so forth, and discuss their lives as if they are insects under a microscope. Let us talk to them.
Yes,
let us know what they are feeling.
I'm sorry to come in.
I think,
sorry, just a
should...
minute. Just a minute before you take over. I'm sorry to come in again with Professor Adam. You see, why we are excited about a live interview from a Ghanaian, from an immigrant and so forth, that is good for a presenter, but it doesn't make a scientific point. That's what I'm trying to say. All right? What contribution does it make scientifically that you listen to one or two immigrants, other than to say, okay, I've heard one talk, I've heard two talk?
Yeah, but that is more credible than just simply giving faceless statistics. At least it is living. At least it tells us the reality of the situation.
No. You see, saying that they are pointless, that again has to be established.
Yes. I think
I'm sorry, we can.
Let me.
Yes.
Let me
take that up with
the moderator. The moderator is.
Okay. Thank you very much, my senior colleagues, my professors, and my.
Let me. The coordinator. Let me try to respond to some of the things that my senior colleague have stated. I want to state first and foremost that this is a very important privilege, as it has given me an opportunity to hear from one of my lecturer in BUK when I was doing my MSc. Professor, I am your student from BUK in 2011. You taught me MIS. And I understand everything you have stated, quite all right. But the object of this discussion is about labor migration and labor migration within the ECOWAS region. Like the first person observe, I have taken note. The labor migration that I am discussing, it is not only related to a particular sector. As you heard me when I was talking, I talk about migration to agricultural sector, construction sector, and even informal sector. Some of the informal sector, the statistics are not clearly recorded, but I made reference to them. I have taken your observation regarding updating the data to current data. What I did at the beginning is to set the tone for the discussion by bringing in statistics from the past. So, and some of it I garnished with recent statistics, even though I did not provide some of the dates and sources of those statistics. It is in the real paper. So I have taken your advice for data collection. This paper that I did, this paper and this presentation, I did not really go out to collect paper from people that have migrated or that emigrated from Nigeria or from within the West African region. But rather, I consulted literature to get some of those statistics that I have mentioned in my presentation. You have talked about I was making reference to Nigeria. I made reference to Nigeria regarding emigration and regarding immigration, that is outflow and inflow. And I gave the statistic also very clearly. But overall, the comments you made, I have taken note of them. I will use it to improve on the later. The primary emeritus professor Sogolo, Professor, we are your younger one learning from you regarding permit and resident permit that I mentioned. Part of the protocol that I mentioned at the beginning is the right for people within this member region having the right to reside within the region, and having a resident permit in the second phase, which I said right to reside. Part of it is to obtain a resident permit. Yes, even though people from other countries are required to have a resident permit, some of the people that move within this corridor look at it as if it's a hindrance on the free movement, which was stated as part of the thing that should facilitate movement of people within the region. That is why I mention it. For Prof, our former VC, I know I did not ask any migrant about the remittance they make home or make back. But even though we have our mindset about the statistics that are reporting not correct or not, but they give us insight into what is happening. We know there are reverse remittance, like Professor Tijani gave example of people in Nigeria sending money to other parts of the country. But the remittance I am discussing is the one within the ECOWAS region. Within the ECOWAS region, we may agree that, we may not agree that the amount, the statistic we have gotten for this remittance may not be the actual statistic, but it is not completely wrong. There are remittances within this country, and this is brought about by the movement. So somebody that moved from Cote d'Ivoire that is in Nigeria, earn money and send it back, it is an impact of this labor movement. That is what I am discussing in essence. I want to give an example. If, for instance, the National Open University of Nigeria gave us a statistic of the total number of students as 100,000 students in the university. Yes, it may not be exactly 100,000. It may not be below. It may be below. It may be higher. But I don't need to go to Open University to go and count the number of students there to see that whether they are sure or not, whether the places we get statistics from are correct or not. They are the required agency that gives this statistic. I am not doubting. I am not saying the statistic they give is actually correct, but I don't need to go and ask somebody how much you have sent home to use it as a national level statistic to say that remittances, somebody sent $2,000 home. So the figures I quoted that I got from this agency will give us a picture of remittances that are related to that comes with this labor movement. That is the essence of the statistic that I give. I'm not saying that the statistic is 100% correct or not, but it's a reflection of what is happening. When I was talking about the social problem, I mentioned xenophobia. Yes, there are issues with iPod and other people in the South and stuff like that. But the discussion is in relation to ECOWAS region. Yes, Boko Haram started in Nigeria, but there are a lot of issues across the border. Because of the porosity in our border, there are issues from other countries that is splitting into the country. And some of these issues comes from the neighboring country, which are ECOWAS country. I didn't mention that of Mubi that Dr. Ali Abubakar said, because Cameroon is not part of ECOWAS. My discussion is labor migration within the ECOWAS region. In terms of entrepreneurship, saying that 25% contribution of immigrants to an economy is small because the the people within the economy is contributing 75%. I don't think that is correct. 25% is a quarter, and it is a very significant figure wherever you take it to. So the that is that. For I think Professor Tijani has given us an advice whether we can take this to go looking at the educational policy. And if you look at some of the questions that that were asked, you see that the issue of how it is affected by what is happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Chad Republic. It is what is happening there is having a lot of effect, because some of the protocol that has to do with free movement of goods, people, and stuff like that, because of the initial sanction by the ECOWAS region, it is affecting some of those movements. And because of the way some of those military junta are running the country, there are hindrances with borders and stuff like that. So it is also affecting labor movement. And somebody asked, is it economically safe to engage business transaction with this country? Depending on how we look at it, we see when there was a military takeover in Niger Republic, there was economic sanction. Some of the people doing transaction within country, Nigeria, Niger, Benin Republic, with those countries, they had difficulty in receiving payment for those transactions. So sometimes it has economic implications doing business with them. So depending on the type of business that you are doing, it is this. And somebody asked about the issue of education. All this bound down to educational policy. Like NUC, I am an acting director, quality assurance in my school here, and we receive communication from NUC on universities that do not meet requirement for students to be transferred to schools in Nigeria. So this has a lot to do with educational policy. And overall, if there are intention of this movement, some of these things relating to this educational policy can be assessed at the Federal Ministry of Education. So I think these are some of my response. Some of the issues that were raised is noted. I'll use them to improve on the work. So thank you very much, the coordinator. This is my response.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Adamu Abdul, for making efforts to respond to the comments and observations. I want to also thank all our contributors for their comments towards enriching the work presented by our presenter. Before the vote of thanks, I wish to cede the floor to our director for her comments.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not available. I am at a meeting outside the country, but I made effort to steal this chance to come and quickly log in somewhere in the corner there. I thank my professors for their usual presence and making this interaction always very, very interesting, their contributions, their interaction. I thank our presenter for today, because he willingly came forward with his work, because I believe he's a very good academic. He wanted everybody to contribute to this work to make it very, very robust. And he has assured us that he will put the corrections in place and gave some reasons for what he did at one point or the other. And I believe he will also listen and do the needful as necessary. I thank my moderator for today, Dr. Uta, for being there, because I should be allowing them to step in whenever I'm not around so that they can get used to it, because nothing lasts forever. Someday I will be out and they will be the ones to take over. So it's a part of mentoring to allow him to be here today. And he has done well and he has room for improvement. I thank all the others. I've seen some faces I've not seen for a long time on this platform. Dr. Ugbeje, Professor Ugbeje, sorry, the former Dean of Law. It's nice seeing you. And I saw my Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration has been here since I came in. I saw him there, Professor Isaac Buswat. Thank you so much, sir. It's nice seeing you on this platform because I rarely see him. So that is why I'm calling him specially. And of course, Professor Omachonu, and so many others. I can see Dr. Omuya there, and all of you, I can't call everybody, but I really thank you all for making this an interesting, discussion. I enjoyed every bit of it, even though I came late, and I really appreciate you all for your contributions. So over to you, Dr. David, but I will want this presenter to tell us one last word before you call it a day on this platform. One last word from the presenter. Then Dr. David will call it a day. Thank you. God bless.
So I want to thank the center for giving me the opportunity to present my work. I want to thank our emeritus professor, Godwin Sogolo. Abdullah Uba Adamu was my lecturer in BUK when I was doing my MSc in management. And I want to thank the director and every other person that participated and contributed to everything I have said. I want to thank you all for the opportunity. On this note, thank you very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, our presenter. Thank you very much, our professors. On this note, we shall call it a day. But before we go, I wish to also invite you to follow us on all our social media handles to get updates on our activities, which is ready on display on the chat box. The issue of migration is a continuous discussion, and believe you me, that you have more coming from us in our next month's webinar. You will get notification from us vis-a-vis our next topic, our next presentation. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor, my director, and all the staff from CMGS, I wish you a happy afternoon. Thank you for joining us, and have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye. Okay. All right.